Wyoming, East Avondale. Anybody from North Avondale? Who else we got? Oak Ridge Park, of course, Oak Ridge. Southtown. Anybody else, brother? All right, listen. Oh, I said them. I said them. It feels good to call the names of those neighborhoods because for a large portion of my time spent as an elected official over the last 5 years, 4 of those years I represented the areas I just called out. I know a lot of y'all. I've knocked on your doors. I've sat on your porches. I've attended neighborhood meetings after neighborhood meetings. I feel like I personally know you, so it's good to see you. I also want to acknowledge all the neighborhood elected officials that make up District 5. Could you please stand or be acknowledged right quick? Thank you. And so I want to give you and extend to you an extra thank you on behalf of all the work you do for your neighbors, the residents in your neighborhood, as well as being leaders in District 5. Thank you so much. Listen, I want to give you all a little bit of how we've done this. We've done this now in District 9, District 8, District 7, and District 4. This gives us an opportunity to give you all a brief update on kind of what we're doing in the mayor's office as well in the city councilor district's office. In this capacity is Councilor O'Quinn. And then our favorite part is we open it up with some dialogue, Q&A, and we just have a candid, honest conversation with you all and try to answer as many questions as possible. We intentionally have the format where we take up your questions because we figured that takes out a lot of the extra talk and we can actually get to answers because that's what you all have come here for. Actual answers to or solutions to addressing your concerns. I got a lot of employees that you all see wrapped around these walls. And at this point, I want to say thank you to them for all the work they do every single day on behalf of the citizens and the residents. And they don't have to stand the entire time, so y'all can take a seat at the table or y'all can come here and sit in the audience. Let me give a few touch points. I want you all to know in District 5, all the neighborhoods I just called out, neighborhood revitalization is still the #1 priority. Next month, November 28th, makes 1 year I've been in office. Time goes by fast. And as it relates to the issues you all have brought to us around what's happening in your block, what's happening in your street, what's happening in your neighborhood, what's happening in your district, we're peeling back layer after layers around what we inherited, and at the exact same time, putting resources towards addressing those issues. Blight, supporting and investing in the land bank to address the overgrown lots and the empty lots, figuring out a way to invest in these commercial corridors that exist in District 5, as well as finding more resources to pave streets, which y'all know y'all are really, really tired of the bumpy roads. Shout out to Puerto Madrid. But I want to thank you for the opportunity that you all have given us to serve you. In a minute, I'm going to pull out my phone, which will require me to ask Darrell to hold this mic while I list a couple of stats to you about what we've been able to accomplish thus far. I'll pass the mic back to him, allow him to open up about what he's done on your behalf, and then we will literally go into Q&A so we can get as many questions addressed as possible. Hold it for me 1 second. I can still use both hands, I think. So I want to tell you all Just some numbers, how we've aggressively gone after demolition. In 2018, since March, we've torn down 217 structures. 47 of those have been in District 5, and we'll continue to address the blighted properties that you all have continued to complain about. I want to also share with you all that between the additional funding we're putting towards street paving, as well as what we put in the original budget, we plan to put about $7 million in streetscape improvement projects, which includes sidewalks, lighting, curb, gutters, drainage, ADA improvements, all in District 5. We also combine collectively across the entire district, which includes all the neighborhoods, about $15 million in capital projects associated with parks, libraries, and public facilities in District 5, as well as $1.5 million planned for citywide drainage improvements, and that funding was passed by the council today. And then the last is about $750,000, which a portion of that will be given to the priority potholes within District 5. I share that information because you all want to know it. As we consider all the fundamentals of government, I don't think you all are requesting a lot of us. You want some fundamentals of blocking and tackling. I think that comes down to making sure we pave streets, that we repair potholes, that we make sidewalks walkable, curves, lights, etc. We are addressing those issues. But it also requires us to make some other tough decisions on how we find more money to address those issues, which means we have to cut somewhere else. One of the things we want to do, in addition to all the public improvement things we're investing in addition to addressing all the infrastructure issues, is how do we address crime, not just in District 5, but citywide. And that's not necessarily isolated to crimes against persons, victims of assault and or murders. There are a lot of property crimes that are happening, particularly in District 5. And what we need now is not just an overhaul in how we police, but we need an overhaul in what it really means to define our Neighborhood Watch program. I think many of you all know about how Neighborhood Watch works, but it doesn't work if you got 1,000 residents in one neighborhood and only 5 people participate. And so what's needed is some mutual conversations, not just from the councilor and I, not just from the neighborhood presidents, but we're gonna have to go door to door just like we would as it relates to if it was a campaign for an election, and say, what do we want to do around Neighborhood Watch during the daytime and during the nighttime to make sure we can support the police efforts in what they're doing and being additional eyes and ears to prevent, decrease, and suppress crimes against properties, as well as also supporting victims and identifying those who are causing harm to others within our city. Issues around crime require multiple tools in the toolbox. I know many of you all, since I've been in here, have walked up to me and said, hey, we want some cameras too. And my response is, we're required to be pragmatic in our positions as leaders. Cameras are not the end solution to solving any form of crime in our city, but they are a part of and one of a tool within a toolbox. Just like additional police are a tool within the toolbox. Just like switching to 10-hour shifts and putting more officers on the street, doubling our manpower, is a tool within the toolbox. Additional shot spotters to help us triangulate when shots are fired is an additional tool within the toolbox. There is no one silver lining to solving our issues around crime, but the job is to continue to add solutions and add tools to the toolbox for us to collectively solve this issue. And so I want to thank you. I'm not asking you all to be patient because there are too many lives that have been lost. I'm not asking you all to be patient because too many of your homes or cars have been broken into. But I am asking you all to help us. Join your neighborhood association Join your neighborhood watch program. If you're retired and you're at home in the daytime, you can help us participate. At nighttime, there are ways to do it as well. But I believe collectively we can solve this issue by working together. So there's no time for us to point fingers or blame. If there's anybody to blame, it's the person that's committing the crime. But we have to continue to put more tools in the toolbox to address this issue. And I believe the more tools we put in the toolbox of addressing crime, the better we can go about solving crime. Is everyone okay with that? There's one last issue before I turn it over to Mr. O'Quinn. Well, a couple issues. Let me go ahead and put it out there about Southtown public housing. I've communicated to the chair, the executive director of the Birmingham Housing Authority, that the residents of Southtown public housing deserve to be communicated with. Whatever is going to happen as it relates to any form of conversation around public housing, the residents of Southtown are not just individuals, they're people. They're not just people, they're families. And they're not just families, that's a community. And it doesn't matter that they don't own their property, they deserve to have the same respect and to be treated the same way we would treat any homeowner in our city. And so as it relates to anything, any conversation, any possible transition, any whatever, the expectation I have as mayor is that we communicate with every resident in that area, and that communication is not defined as we held a public meeting and whoever showed up shows up. If they don't show up, we need to call them. If they don't answer the phone, we need to knock on their door. We need to communicate with everybody. And I needed to say that publicly in front of this audience. The other thing I want to say is there's some crazy talk. A story went out about what's happening on Interstate 2059 in regards to the interstate is apparently coming down like tomorrow or something. That's just not true. All right? That's a lie. It's false. It's fake news. Jarvis Leonard is the appointed person under Mr. Cooper, who's over LDOT. And the information they've communicated to our office in the month of October, which has only been about the last 14, 15 days, is the interstate is not coming down in 2018. And so my response to them is, whenever it's going to come down, please communicate that to our office and communicate that to the citizens of Birmingham so we can know what our options and routes are. The residents of Fountain Heights and Druid Hills especially deserve to have that notification, as well as Central City, where this 1 mile stretch passes through. So the same expectation I have for the Housing Authority around communication is the same expectation I have from LDOT around what are we doing to make sure the residents know alternative routes when this happens. I know a lot of us are not pleased with that. If you didn't know, Darrell and I we actually sued the state in regards to that project. We weren't necessarily successful, but there were things we asked them to put in place. One of the wins was making sure they repave all the streets in Fountain Heights. But it's small wins that are important to make sure we continue to be the voice for you all in District 5. With that, I got a couple other things I need to do. I need to acknowledge several other elected officials in the room. I see State Representative Rod Scott here. Good to see you, sir. State Senator Linda Coleman. The State Representative Mary Moore is present. And School Board Member of District 8, Sonia Smith, is also here. Did I miss any other elected officials? If not, I want to turn the mic over to Mr. O'Quinn.
Thank you. Mayor Woodfin covered most of the topics that I think are relevant that I would talk about I just want to take this opportunity to say what a pleasure it has been to serve the citizens of District 5 and the city of Birmingham as a whole. And I really mean that. I love this job. I go to work every day, but you know, it's a pleasure because it doesn't feel like work. And you all gave me that opportunity, and I really thank you for that, because it's, you know, I've done a lot of things in my life, but this is definitely the best one so far. So thank you for the opportunity. You can ask anybody on the 3rd floor. I show up every day. I put a lot of work in, and we're looking forward to bringing a lot of good things to not only the citizens of District 5, but the city of Birmingham as a whole. Let's get to the Q&A. Yeah, I'm more interested in the Q&A.
Rick, that may be the shortest we have.
All right. Well, hey, we've got plenty of questions for you right here. Just to let you know, we're collecting your questions. We're going to go through as many as possible. Some of them will be very similar to the others. So I'm trying to group all of those and read through them. We're going to recognize the neighborhoods. Really quick, a show of hands with cards. If you've got a question that you haven't been able to turn in yet, if you raise your hand, or if you need a questionnaire card, raise your hand. We've got one right in the front, if somebody can get that to you. And I see one right over there. Emily, if you can go get that one in that crowd, and we will get those in the queue as we move forward. Let's start with the first one, and this is kind of a group question. I'm going to read a few that are here. I got to find a place to set my notes, though. So I've got a question from College Hills. Why the trash hasn't been picked up on 5th Street in our neighborhood for 5 weeks? Druid Hills, when will they start? Well, actually, another one, not Druid Hills, but East Lake and Wahoma. Our neighborhood needs garbage being picked up. And then Fountain Heights kind of summing up, saying, what is the problem of the inconsistency right now of Public Works collecting trash and brush?
It's a great question. So I'm going to be able to separate trash and brush. I think a lot of us use those terms as the same, but they're not necessarily the same. In regards to trash, based on all the information we've gathered, that hasn't been a problem, but brush pickup has. And the simplest way I can share it with y'all, the problem has been we have had legitimate equipment problems. So I want you to consider this. Brush pickup, from what you all have known, based on routine, we pick it up twice a month. Our trucks have been breaking down because routine maintenance over years has not happened. Now, why all of a sudden they want to fall on my watch, not sure. But I'm responsible for repairing those trucks, because you all don't care if the trucks break down. You only want the brush picked up. And to that point, I not only respect that, but it's my duty to respond to that. In that regards, I want to say last week the council approved passage of us purchasing new brush trucks. So in the meantime, what we got to do is stagger. We have to stagger our brush pickup. And so if you all be patient with us, not just District 5, but we're asking the entire city to be a little bit more patient with us as we abbreviate what we're doing. We're switching to 3 weeks in the meantime until we get those trucks in rotation to make sure we can get back to a schedule that works for everyone. And so we were having to literally take trucks off their route because they weren't working, which caused a backlog. I want to say I apologize for that, because it's not cool. You all put it out, you expect it to be picked up, and all of a sudden stuff look ugly in front of your front yard, and there's nobody to blame but the city. So now we're in a position to make sure that doesn't continue to happen. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor and Councilor, here is the next question. This one comes from College Hill. Well, it's a collection. College Hills, Graymont, Smithfield. Street paving, 8th Avenue North and Center Street to 6th Avenue South, Great Springs, and 65 South Freeway. Asking some updates on street paving out there in general.
So I literally in a meeting this morning before 9 a.m. asked for an update on street paving. 3 weeks ago, we asked the city council to approve, out of surplus funding, an additional $4+ million for street paving. So what this dollars will go towards It won't necessarily be cherry picking streets or playing politics with which streets we're going to pave. There's a formula and given a hierarchy of the worst streets throughout the entire city. In addition to that $4 million, we had already put close to $2 million in the budget. So I think there's over $5 million towards street paving that will happen between now and June 30th when the fiscal year ends. And then we will start with the priority streets, and priority streets are defined as the worst streets throughout the city. Based on the question you just asked, if Graymont is defined in that, it will get first dibs in paving. Amen. Let me give you all a frame so you can know what we inherited. When I got to office, one of the first questions I asked was, what is the backlog of street surfacing and paving streets in the city? Citywide, it is a $50 million tab. That's how far we're behind. If we brought every street up to code to pave right now, it would be a $50 million price tag. And so in an ideal world, we could commit $10 million a year over 5 years to pave our streets. But we weren't able to do that this year. We were only able to do a little over $5 million. So every dollar we can find, every additional dollar we can find towards neighborhood revitalization, we always want to include paving more streets.
Yes, sir. This one comes from Southtown Court. This talks about concerns about drug dealers in the neighborhood. It says, how soon can we get those new security cameras installed? Also, a same question from Smithfield. Will cameras be installed east of Center Street? We need them.
Let me say this about Southtown. If you didn't know, as it relates to, well, let me go out first and then come back. The council approved a couple weeks ago additional cameras in our city. This is not necessarily a new program. Cameras have been in our city. I can tell you as it relates to Southtown, cameras have been in Southtown a minimum since 2012, so that's 6 years. I want everyone to know this is not some big brother program. All right? Cameras, oh, I didn't see you, Councilor. Councilor John Hillier is here, y'all. This is not some big brother program. This is not, we don't have cameras looking at someone's front door, front porch, or home. All right, we're not into violating anyone's rights. That's not, y'all know I say the word cool a lot. That's not cool. We started with a shot spotter program, and there were no cameras. And the whole idea was to find a way for officers to triangulate shots being from a gun. They get to a scene quicker, or they get to the area quicker. A couple things happen. No one is there. No one wants to cooperate or talk, etc. And so if you consider the whole idea of cameras on a particular quarter, let's say 24th Street that runs through Southtown, or 3rd Avenue and Bessemer Road that runs through west of Birmingham. The idea is to put more of them on the commercial corridor where there are already cameras and all of these businesses that we frequent. So nothing new there. We're adding to that. And so it helps with the triangulation, whether we have cooperation or not. If we get to an area and someone says, hey, this particular car sped off, shots were fired from this car was green. Well, ma'am or sir, did you get a tag number? They say no. But let's say it came off 3rd Avenue and they shot in Central Pratt, or it came off 24th and they shot in Southtown. Then we can go back to the area of 24th Street. We can go back to the area of 3rd Avenue or Bessemer Road, where around the time they say the shots were shot, or the gun was shot, and be able to look at not just the green car, but be able to attach the tag number to that green car. That's what this is about. This is not about spying on anybody. This is about helping us again, another tool in the toolbox to solve crime. Now, the question dealt with, can we get cameras in that area? Everything we do is public information, so if you read the contract, you'll know this. These cameras are mobile, meaning if crime moves in a particular area and increases, we can move those cameras to that particular area. And so to answer your question, I'm not sure if it can come to your area right away, but I think it's worth more discussion. And I think I know who asked that question in both areas, so just holler at me when this is over. We can talk more detail about that. But the whole idea of cameras is to add to what we're doing, y'all. You'll be amazed at the following, of what I'm about to tell you. And then I'll let him add something and go to the next question. It is an unfortunate situation when someone has a verbal altercation with someone and it turns into gun violence in our city. And I want you all to know that there are a lot of victims out here that survive and live. They make it to the hospital. A Birmingham detective goes to that hospital room, talks to this victim, asks them what happened and who did it. They know who did it, and they refuse to tell us. Wow. And I'm telling y'all, you look at those officers right here, they'll shake their heads. It happens it happens too much. I won't say every day, but it happens too much. When we're talking about cameras, again, it is not to solve crime. It is to help us address the issues of crime. So be patient with us as it relates to that. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll just add that there's been a lot of discussion and debate in the political space about the surveillance camera program. But when you go out to the neighborhoods, when I go out to the neighborhoods and I interact with my constituents, people who are, living in the midst of gunshots and other violence, they're actually asking for these cameras. So there's, some folks who are out there, having a debate about the program in general. But I'm telling you, when I talk to my constituents, they're not asking me about whether or not we should have them. They're asking, can we get one in our neighborhood?
Spot on. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Next question is related in public safety. This is from Oak Ridge. Is the police department still understaffed, and why? He's here.
Hey, Chief, you don't have to answer. I got you, sir. But everyone, this is Chief Smith. This is our new police chief. Chief Smith hasn't been on the job 6 months, so he's wrapping his arms around issues as it relates internally to our police department. But I think some of it's worth sharing, because he shared some of these statements publicly. So what I'm about to tell you is not new, and I don't feel I'm speaking out of turn because he's already shared it. The answer is yes, we are understaffed. What's happening in Birmingham is not isolated to Birmingham. It's part of a national trend. You have a combination of things. You have a force where a lot of officers have done their time and they're eligible for retirement. That is also combined with, across the nation, recruiting classes are smaller. That is also combined with a third factor of a lot of officers transfer to what I would define as suburban municipalities with lower crime and higher pay. Those three things collectively have us where we're not comfortable with the size of our police force. One of the things, and there are many things that I like about Chief Smith and his leadership, is that he's not only overly aggressive in recruiting, but he's committed to making sure we beef up our police force and department via numbers. One of the things we're doing is engaging the Jefferson County Personnel Board, who's responsible for hiring not just within the city of Birmingham, but other municipalities within the county, to have a program where we can rehire retired officers who not only know our streets and have relationships, but the training is not the same, and it works for us to get officers on the street immediately. The other thing he's doing to address that is we've moved from 8-hour shifts, where there are 3 shifts, so there's a lag in not only our response time, but the number of officers on the street. And we've gone towards, now in all 4 precincts, right, 4 10-hour shifts. That's allowed us literally to increase our manpower overnight without having to hire anyone. In addition to that, I am glad to say the last recruiting class, how many, Chief? Combined is higher than the last at least 2 classes where I participated in. And so that commitment is in action as well. And so to the question, I wanted to spend the majority of the answer on what we're doing about it, but the answer is yes. But we'll continue to put more resources towards recruiting more officers to our city, as well as finding more creative and incentive ways to get officers to stay as well as bring others back. Thank you. Rick?
This question comes from East Avondale. What are we doing to address transportation needs in relationship to jobs and attracting jobs and helping to keep those who live there employed?
That's a good question, Darrell.
All right, so I'll take this one. I want to recognize Christopher Ruffin, who is the director of the BJCTA. I saw him in here earlier. I don't know if he had to step out, but Ted Smith, who is the new chair of the board, was also here. Is Ted here? In any case, we developed close relationships with the BJCTA, and I'm sorry, I'm going to forget your last name, but the director of our airport authority, Mr. Sylvester Lavender, he's here, and one of the things that we are doing, I'm the chair of the Transportation Committee for the City Council. Prior to this point, there has never been a place within city government, or really anywhere, where all the transportation sectors converge and communicate with one another. So we are creating that space where ALDOT, the Airport Authority, BJCTA, and any other entities in the transportation space come together and at least have the opportunity to talk to each other about the things that are going on in their respective segments. The other thing that we are working very hard on is trying to diversify transportation options. And I really feel passionate about making more options available and addressing transportation from an equity standpoint. Not everyone can own a car. It costs on average about $6,000 a year to own a car between gas and insurance and maintenance. So having access to other options, public transit in particular, is one way that we can actually improve quality of life and reduce cost of living for our constituents. So we're very focused on exploring different ways that we can make transportation options available. You may have seen the recent controversy on the news about the electric scooters that were deployed in Birmingham. That is something that I'm very much working on. It turns out that there's a little hitch in the state law, so we will be working with state legislators to get that fix in place. In the meantime, we're actually working in my office to craft a new ordinance that would codify that process and allow those companies to come in and make that option available to folks. And this goes for not just scooters, but bikes and whatever other options may come about. And then we want also in the public transportation space to think about innovative ideas and ways that we can improve public transportation beyond just fixed bus routes. So there's about 60% of our city that isn't serviced by our current public transit system, and we want to make public transit available for all of our constituents.
Darrell just said it in a nice way. He's talking about fixed routes. Let me ask you a question. Does anybody feel that everybody should have to walk to a bus stop and wait on a bus? Yes or no? So there are other cities, y'all, where public transportation is reimagined. That everything is not, you walk to a bus stop, You wait your time for the bus to come by. You get on the bus, and it drops you off at a certain point, and then you got to walk to where you want to go, to the grocery store, to home, to your job, to pick up your children, whatever that is. We can reimagine that. There are other cities that have on-demand public transportation where it can pick you up where you are, your home, the grocery store, your job, your children's school, and take you exactly to the place you need to go. That is the creative space this counselor, your counselor, is thinking in, and he should be commended for that, because the whole idea is very simple. You all deserve, if you do not have your own personal vehicle, to get from point A to B just like anyone else. And no one should have to lose their job, have their pay deducted, or miss their hospital appointment because the bus broke down. That's just not fair. And that's all he's saying.
Right, and I'll just add to that that a lot of this is about access to opportunity. There's a lot of workforce development projects that are going on that Mayor Woodfin is involved in. However, if those folks cannot get to and from that job, then, you know, what's the point? So we need to make sure that they have options available to them so that they can have access to these opportunities.
Okay, the next question comes from Gate City. Actually, I got a couple, one from Gate City, one from Oak Ridge Park. This is both, as you touched on this a little bit. When is the repaving of the street on the Puerto Madrid, the entire area? Also, when will Puerto Madrid from Crestwood Boulevard to First Avenue North be paved?
Edwin, come on up, sir. Let me just put you on the spot right quick. I'm going to let Edwin Ravel, y'all, is over PEP for the city of Birmingham, which is technically responsible for a lot of our infrastructure issues and street paving. Him and I have been talking. I posed a question to him this morning about when we're going to get that list. He's going to hopefully not get too technical with y'all, but this is the second or third time this question has come up. So any additional information you can provide to them about street paving, please have at it.
Good evening. As Mayor said, I'm Edwin Ravel. I serve as the Director of Planning, Engineering, and Permits. We are diligently working to provide that list to the mayor. We know that there is a serious need to make sure that we pay attention to street repaving all across this district as well as across the city. As the mayor mentioned, there is tremendous need across the city, so we have to set some priorities. Puerto Madrid, that was mentioned. If whoever asked that question, if you could see me after the meeting, I'll make sure that I stay behind and I can make sure that I give you a specific answer to that particular question. But do know that that list is coming extremely soon. It will be shared with the mayor's office. Then there'll be some opportunities to share with the council. And so there will be some time that we'll have to take to make sure that everything is finalized. But we are working. We do know that this is a top priority. The mayor has made that extremely clear, and we're doing all we can to make sure that we meet that.
Just to add to what Mr. Ravel has said, the council and I, from time to time, get a chance to sit down with each other. And what we want to do, my office is important, acknowledging that the counselors, each counselor represents you all. And so one of the things that helps in my position as mayor, if the counselors tell me their top priorities, then we focus our resources, our energy, our time, and our commitment on yielding to the priority that the counselors share with us. You all should know, not just Councilor O'Quinn, but majority of the counselors have said street paving is one of their top 3 priorities. I mean, literally, across the city. We know that based on what I told you all earlier about $50 million backlog of street paving. To that end, I've only had 2 requests to my team. Please get the information to me of the streets from a priority standpoint. And 2, I'm not sure if it's ever been done in the past, but we need to over-communicate that to the public so they can know which streets we're going to pave before we actually pave them. Thank you.
Okay, here's a question. This one comes from Southside. How and when can a noise permit be revoked?
That's a good question. I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah, so this is actually an issue that I've worked on a little bit because in part because especially downtown, noise is the issue, and our current noise ordinance is not really doesn't have any teeth in it. It doesn't have a specific decibel level or the volume at which enforcement can take place. It basically says if you're 50 feet away and this noise is disturbing you, then that's a violation of the ordinance. So that's something that I hope that the City Council can revisit. I know Councilor Abbott has made an issue of this many, many times, and so hopefully we can get that addressed. But there are some things, that you need to know, specifically with respect to dogs. There is a portion of City Code that deals with dogs. Bunch of dogs out there. I got a veterinary degree. Love them, but they make a bunch of noise. And in neighborhoods, it's a big issue. So I can't cite the ordinance right now, but if you need help on that particular issue, please get in contact with our office and we can get that code for you.
Okay, here's a question for you. This comes from Hillcrest area. Abandoned houses are eyesores to my neighborhood. What can be done about them?
So abandoned, dilapidated structures suck. And the only thing that'll worse than them is slumlords. And combined, they're just awful. I think what we've done, if you haven't paid attention, is we've put more money in our budget towards demolition. I think an additional $2 million. And so if you didn't hear the number earlier, there are many homes that are beyond repair that we've torn down since March. And we'll continue to tear them down. I think whoever asked the question, if you could, we'll be here a little after the meeting. If you have an actual address, let us know. We'll see where it is in the process so we can get you a more detailed answer. But around neighborhood revitalization, earlier you all heard me say it was a priority. We define stabilizing our neighborhoods before we can revitalize them around making sure we remove blight first. You have to do that. If I want to show an area, let's say if I want to show a commercial property to someone, if it looks like it's a bomb hit it, it's going to be hard for a person to visualize what can be there. But if you clear the site and tell people and show people the potential of it, it changes the conversation. That's similar or not similar to residential areas. One of the main concerns about that question is, does the city have a role in protecting people's property value? And I think the answer is a simple yes. That the more blight, abandoned properties that are beyond repair, that are close to or in proximity to your home, that hurts your own property value. But y'all, we got a legit absentee landlord problem. And man, we don't have home rule. And so we've created ways, we continue to engage the legislators around what we can do. But if it was up to me, I would round all the absentee landlords up. Or they need to feel what we live next to. They need to feel it. But in the meantime, I'm committed to doing everything we can do within the law to be more aggressive and expedite the process around getting rid of these structures. It is not the fastest. Many of y'all know that. Some of y'all complain to me, this house has been abandoned for 5, 7, some of y'all said 12, 11 years. But with this administration, our commitment is to make sure if it's been abandoned that long, within these 4 years, it doesn't remain that way.
So I want to add just one more point about that just another little wrinkle to what Mayor Woodfin said. And what I've been hearing from some of my constituents is that they're actually having trouble getting homeowners insurance. And right, so that is a big obstacle for not only for people who are currently occupied a home, but for somebody who wants to renovate a home. If they can't get homeowner's insurance on that property, then that is a barrier to addressing this blight. So that's something that, a conversation that we want to take up with our state legislative delegation and see if we can get some assistance on the state legislative side to address that issue.
Rick?
Yes, I've got a couple of questions here. I wanted to bring them up kind of together. One from Glenn Iris. This is the current Southtown redevelopment that you mentioned. Could displace 250 families. Does the city have any plans for creating a cooperative housing plan to support? But the other one just kind of ties in a little bit, and I wanted to bring this up as well. Crestwood North. This question, what measure is the city taking to assure that low and moderate income residents are not displaced by economic revitalization?
Really great question. Dr. Carpenter, did I see you walk up? Did I see you get close? Come on up, sir. Let me start the answer out, and then I'm going to pass it to Dr. Carpenter as it relates to the second part of that question. Affordable housing is part of the priority of us around neighborhood revitalization. I think we are in a position to really make a heavy hit on this in a very positive way. We have all these overgrown lots and all these vacant lots in our city. And we've wrapped our arms around the issues of our land bank that all of you all know about that has been in existence, over 4 years now. But it hasn't necessarily worked the way we want it to work. We're now in a position to where the whole conversation has to be around how do we be intentional about more affordable housing in our city, and we believe one of the best ways we can do that is through our land bank. And so we're adding more funding to our land bank to not only expedite the process of people being able to take advantage of it, but the city wants to participate in partnership with private developers to make sure that we can increase the amount of affordable housing. First part of the question dealt directly with the 490 units in Southtown Public Housing, which is about 500 plus families. I want to put that in context to you. If you drive through Southtown, 24th Street, about 7 a.m. in the morning, you see two different bus stops. You see a whole bunch of elementary kids waiting for a bus to be picked up to take them to Avondale Elementary. You see another group of kids be waiting to be taken to Putnam Middle School, and another group of kids ready to be taken to Carver High School. These are families. And so when we think about what's happening or what can possibly happen, again, I'm going to reiterate this. I'm concerned about every family that stays there. And whatever conversation we're having around opportunity, around affordability, around Section 8, around choice, around public housing, if every resident has not been communicated with, I can't support it. I won't support it. Plain and simple. You want to add to the second part of that as it relates to overall what are we doing around making sure there are opportunities around affordable housing?
So good evening. Josh Carpenter, Innovation and Economic Opportunity. One of the things that we've been thinking about is how we can not only think about job growth, which has been the focus of our department for a long time, but also job access and job preparedness. So one of the things we've been thinking about is how can we get jobs and housing co-located. So just today, we actually met with Michael Lundy, who's Housing Authority Director, to think about how we can not only develop housing and affordable housing units, but also think about how we can bring jobs closer to those housing units. One way for us to do that is through this new thing called opportunity zones. So much of District 5 is in an opportunity zone. And essentially what it is it's a new tool where we can take money from the private sector and then pair it with the public sector goals to drive forward on goals for neighborhood revitalization. So we think it's a way not only for us to invest in small businesses, which is important to all of us and to all of our communities, but it's also a way for us to potentially create new affordable housing units. We know that small businesses aren't just the pride of our communities and the gathering places of our neighborhoods. They're also the lifeblood of our economy. Almost over 50% of the jobs in this city that have been created not through big companies, but through small businesses. Many of you in this room are undoubtedly small business owners. And so one of the ways we can also help with some funding there is potentially through some small business incentive funds, some small business investment funds, which to date haven't really existed. So we've hired a few new members on our staff who have been really effective at doing that, and they're going to help bring some of that expertise into our team. And so we look forward to working with y'all on doing that. So it's an exciting time for us, I think, and hopefully for the residents of our community.
Just giving y'all a time check. We're going to keep going. It's 7 o'clock, but we're going to keep at it until y'all tell me to stop, I think, maybe. Keep going, sir.
Mayor, this is we've got three, it's kind of the same topic, but various versions of it. So I'll use this as an example. This one is Birmingham, the other one from 5 Points in Southside. It's kind of two sides of the same coin. I've had about 3 questions asked about homelessness. One saying, during the NUSA conference, you stated that we do not have a crime problem, we have a poverty problem. That's beyond homelessness, I know, but I just wanted to bring that up. The other one is, how do you plan to help with the homeless in 5 Points area? Buildings are empty and there is a negative stigma and people panhandling or getting robbed. So it's a couple of different ways. I can ask one of those back if you want me to.
Yeah, so
We'll both answer. I'll have the counselor start, and I'll chime in.
So I think the mayor may mention to you that homelessness is actually one of the top 3 priorities that when he asked me for my top 3 priorities, homelessness was, I believe, number 2. So this is a space where, you know, historically we have not performed very well in addressing our homeless population in the city of Birmingham. And it's, you know, it's something that has a significant impact on our economy as well. But more than that, I believe that people have basic rights and access to shelter, food, and the ability to take care of themselves are 3 things that I think our city and every city owes to their constituents, even to their homeless population. So Mayor Woodfin, you know, knows that this is a important issue for me. District 5, I feels like it bears the most of the homeless population. So it's something that we are definitely aware of. I'm really excited about the potential of supporting the firehouse shelter with their new expanded facility. That facility has been in operation for decades in substandard conditions. But they're doing the most with what they have, but in the new facility will more than double their capacity and provide for people to be housed on site. Currently, what happens with Firehouse is that everybody gets turned out, and you have to come back. They literally put a stack of cards on a folding table, and if you draw a red card, you're in, black card, you're out. So that is not how we need to be doing things, and we're trying to address that issue. So Mayor Woodfin, expand on that.
Yeah, I just want to add to what he's saying. This conversation requires passion. It requires being sensitive to, I would call, a human need, basic human needs of shelter, clothing, food. Y'all know, like I know, the city of Birmingham, every administration comes in, somebody comes up with a plan, 10-year plan here, 5-point plan here. Under Kincaid administration, there was an actual homelessness plan to reduce homelessness over a 10-year period. I would venture to say that was probably about, 10, 11. I was trying to get the number right. Thank you for helping me. 2007. Thank you. But everything wasn't actually implemented in that. So we don't have to start anything over. Sometimes you just have to take a plan off the shelf, knock the dust off of it, and see what actually works where we can address these issues in a comprehensive way and in a strategic way, and do it with a lot of compassion around how do we help those most in need and most vulnerable in our city. I think everybody know I'm a resident of Central City. It's not new. One of the first people I met was a homeless person named James, call him Hustle Man. I don't mind a homeless person asking me for money. If I got it cash on me, I'll give it to him. Every person's homeless issue is not the same, y'all. There are young people that are in the state system, literally they time out. That's not fair. There are veterans that have legitimate issues and just need help from a stability standpoint. And then there are others. If I'm thinking about my friend Hustle Man, rest in peace. He's pretty honest with the situation. That's the lifestyle he wanted. But this is an issue, if it's analogous to anything, it's similar. No, let me put it this way. It's going to require multiple tools, all right? There is not a one way to fix homelessness. Don't get it twisted. So one of the tools is expanding the number of beds with the firehouse shelter. Another tool is expanding beds at any of our shelters. Another tool is to convene all the people who are already in this space and just listen to them and tell us what are best practices. And another tool, like I said, is knock the dust off that document and say, within these 11 years, what has been accomplished towards this 10-year plan, and literally just hit the reset button what already exists. But I think collectively, this is an issue we can solve if we choose to and want to, have the desire to. But I just think it has to be done with a lot of compassion and a lot of patience and understanding of the human element of basic needs for people.
This is a traffic safety issue. We've received several of these, and it's scattered throughout. This one comes out of South Side, but it's specifically about pedestrian crosswalks and getting more pedestrian crosswalks.
I'm proud to introduce the new director of the Department of Transportation, Mr. James Fowler. I commend Mayor Woodfin. I think James is one of the best additions to city staff. We haven't always had an environment where our formerly known as Traffic Engineering Department was sort of friendly to conversations about improving pedestrian safety, but I can tell you with a 100% certainty that James is very much a pedestrians first person, and I look forward to working with him.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, and I hope I don't let you down in that respect. My name is James Fowler. I'm the director of the Department of Transportation, formerly Traffic Engineering. And one of the reasons we actually changed the name of the department was to acknowledge our broader responsibility to other modes of transportation beyond just traffic and cars. So that starts with pedestrians. I think the core of what makes communities livable is walkability. And so we're going to focus on pedestrians, we're going to focus on transit and cycling in addition to cars and traffic. With respect to crosswalks, one of the things that I think is a challenge for our city, and it's a challenge that I hope that we can rise to meet, is right now we have the minimum standard in terms of what a crosswalk design standard can be. So just the two white stripes. And those fade very quickly as cars run over them. So that is absolutely the minimum that's allowed by the federal government in terms of safety standards. A lot of cities have been moving towards what are called high visibility crosswalks. And so that's the big piano keys, so the much brighter white crosswalks. In order for us to move towards that and implement that citywide, we're going to have to be honest with the infrastructure needs in our community. So whether it's paving or sidewalks or any of the big infrastructure needs such as stormwater or others, our city used to be a population of 350,000 people, but now we're just over 200,000. And a lot of the people that left our city were some of the wealthiest residents. And so we're stuck with a smaller tax base, but the same amount of infrastructure. And that doesn't mean that we can't find solutions. That just means that we'll have to prioritize. And so something we're doing in our department in order to prioritize high visibility crosswalks and how we can implement those is looking at where would they be most impactful. And so around schools and in some of our community centers, those are the places where we can start. And then at the same time, putting together a long-term plan for how we implement that more and more and more broadly across the city.
Thank you. You want to add to that? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'll just say that one of the things that's been a big win from this first year in office is the passage of what's called the Complete Streets Ordinance. And basically what that says is that we're going to approach every transportation project, whether it be restriping a street or repaving it, we're going to approach that project from the perspective of making it a complete street, which means that it accommodates multiple modes of travel, not just cars, but bicyclists and pedestrians. So that's something that's on the books and was passed in the first 100 days of Mayor Woodfin's administration.
Thank you, Councilor. Let's see, we got a couple more questions, but before we get into those and before we wrap up, just know some of these folks y'all see around these tables, issues around street paving, you can go directly and talk to the folk in PEP. We got Chief Smith that's still here. His team is still here. Questions around more affordable housing. I have to acknowledge Nigel Roberts, who is over community development, his team here. We have Walt Gibbons here over public works issues around trash, brush. We got an entire team here, y'all. So staff, they're here and present. If there are other issues that we can't get to via Q&A, please connect with these tables so we can continue to talk with you. Rick?
This is a question, this is coming out of College Hills, but it's about city parking. Private and city parking lots downtown, there should be signs as to which. It's kind of a statement. Can you comment at all on that?
Yeah, so predatory towing is something that we've heard a lot about. Mayor Woodfin, what are we doing about predatory towing?
Right. They're probably referring to the parking lot of 22nd and 2nd Avenue North. They're the worst. I think they got a secret camera, y'all. Don't park there.
I'll tell you a story. Corey, who works with me, we actually were going to a meeting at the Transit Authority and parked in the lot immediately across from the intermodal station. And we were in a city car. It's got a blue plate on the back. Before we could get in the building, up the elevator, I mean, less than 5 minutes, that car was long gone. City car, yeah, so.
$165. So if you haven't had this issue, please, if you park in the parking lot downtown, check your surroundings before you go to wherever you're going. Pretty please. What are we gonna do about it?
Yes.
I don't like it, y'all. Like, personally, I don't like it because the face you see on some of these folks, it's like they're gouging almost. It's on purpose. But I'm trying to balance that as well because a lot of these private lots, they have people, whether they're residents or commercial owners for their employees, that pay for those spots. So I'm trying to strike a balance. I think the balance is notice, y'all. The notice, majority of the people don't see it. So I think we have to have a conversation around our ordinances as it relates to private parking, around visibility and notice of said lots. I think that's gonna require more conversations. But I think what we've seen, or what I've personally seen over the last 2 years, is very disturbing to me. This was prior to me being mayor. I think we have to continue to talk about it and find a way to have a balance of protecting the rights of the owner of the parking lot, but with people who don't have the notice that this is a private lot.
I just also add that adding transportation options and utilizing our public parking decks and marketing those better is part of the equation, because if you can go to the public parking deck, say on 20th Street and 5th Avenue North, and park there, and you can have ready access to maybe an electric scooter or a bike or something to get to your final destination, that makes that connectivity easier. Those are the types of things that we're thinking about.
I'm gonna end on one because I've got a lot of passion in this. I've got 3 questions all on the same thing. Are there any underutilized parks in Woodlawn or elsewhere in the city that we could use as a temporary skate park? Hashtag Birmingham needs a skate park.
Birmingham needs a skate park. I can't speak specifically to Woodlawn, but I can tell you that there's a $800 million project that's going on like right out the window over here. And part of that project is developing the space underneath the bridges. And thanks to Faith Skate and Peter Carvanen, they actually delivered a petition to ALDOT that had over 4,000 signatures. So that made a huge statement, and I believe that putting a skate park in that space is probably one of the leading uses for that space. It won't be exclusively a skate park. The space is actually a mile long. It's 10 city blocks underneath this bridge. So there's plenty of space to do a lot of different things, but surely a skate park will be one of them. I'm fairly certain of that.
The only thing I can add to that is, 2 things. You said something about Woodlawn. So Maisha Hutchison is here, who's not only the president of Oak Ridge, but she's here in her capacity. She's in a dual capacity here. She's also representing Congresswoman Terry Sewell of the 7th Congressional District. If you can stand and be recognized, thank you for being here. The city of Birmingham, y'all, has 116 parks across 99 neighborhoods. If you didn't know that, that is 116. As a matter of fact, we are literally building 117 park in Pratt City. That is a lot of parks. And the only thing I'm uncomfortable about building 117 parks is I don't think we've done the best job of taking care of the first 116. And as I think of District 5 and I think of all the parks in District 5, I'm biased towards District 5 if you didn't know or can't tell.
Lewis Park, Downey Park,
Man, we can go on and
Wahoma
on.
Park,
Yeah,
Marconi Park,
you name it.
Crowell Young,
Roll them all.
Lynn Park,
Thank
Kelly Ingram Park.
Spitting game. I think we have such a resource issue in our city that we just have to find a way to continue to invest in our existing infrastructure. That includes parks, y'all. And so over these years, we'll continue to make some tough decisions, maybe unpopular decisions. But I think as it relates to our libraries, as it relates to our parks, as it relates to Barrett, Phillips Academy, Oliver, Parker High, these 4 schools are in District 5. We have to continue to support those teachers, support those schools, support those families, volunteering our time. We have to continue to support those parks and what we can do from a volunteer basis to have them clean up. So join us this Saturday, October 20th, citywide cleanup, participate in your neighborhood, participate in your district. There are some things we can do that don't cost money, just require a little sweat equity, and I hope everyone continues to join in. If you're sitting in this room tonight, it's because you not only care about your neighborhood in District 5, but you care about the city. So I want to thank you for being here. Rick, is there something you want to do before we both close out?
I want to just remind folks, if you haven't received one of these, if you parked in the city parking lot, it's in the Boutwell lot, right? If you parked in the Boutwell deck next door, make sure you grab one of these before you go out. This is a voucher for you to get out. They're at the front desk right here at table 35. So come on over here. That's it.
All right, before we close out, y'all, I wanted Councilor O'Quinn to give some parting words, and then I'll close us out as well.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to say is that This man and myself and these people in the room, you know, we can't do it all. That it's going to take everyone working together to be part of the solution. And I recognize a lot of faces out here tonight, and I know you've been volunteering not only on one project, but doing multiple things. But we need more people putting their shoulder to the wheel and helping us to address all of these issues. We have a saying in our office called the Symphony of Service. And what that talks about is just, you know, find your instrument and play it really well. And if we're all doing that, we can create some really beautiful music.
I think the preacher just closed us out, so thank you. Thank you all.